works. I've been asked a few times now about opening the APECS AP cylinder, and it's a very similar class of lock to the Yale Superior or Platinum, the Milenko Magnum. They are pretty much in the same class in as much as you have pins to pick, and you also have sliders to set on the side. If we take a look at the key, you can see that the key that fits this lock has 5 pins, and you can see the track down the side of the key there for setting the sliders. So you've effectively got 5 pins to pick, and then you have a series of sliders that need to be moved across for you to be able to open the cylinder. On this particular lock, the spring inside that picks up the cam is very strong, and if you don't pick up that cam as you're picking it, or if you don't depress that spring and pick up the cam while you're picking it, then you'll be able to pick the lock, but you won't be able to rotate the cam, and the door will remain in the locked position, of course. So what do you need to do to pick this? You could take a key and cut it down in half effectively, so that you can populate the right hand side of the lock, push the key all the way in, which would tension, and also pick up the cam in the background. Or if you were to buy the GJ locks kit, they basically come with blades that fit this lock and also fit the Yale as well. So this is the blade that fits inside here, and when you're picking this, you have to make sure that's obviously kept depressed, because if you pick it and it's not depressed, then again you won't pick that cam up. The square back here obviously fits into the recess on this pick body, and then once that's in place, you then use the GJ picking wire, which slides down inside and then allows you to pick. Now bear with me a second, I'm just going to move the camera. Right, so we're now looking down onto the lock, and you can see there the spring pressure from the cam. That enables us to move the cam. That doesn't, so we need to keep it pressed in while we're picking. Here is the body of the 2-in-1, and if we put the pick wire in there as well. So we need to have this pushed in and apply a gentle turning force to it. If it's too heavy, then if we turn it too forcibly, then we're not going to be able to set the pins. And there's a lot of security pins in this lock, and also overset traps for the key pins, so you have to push them very gently to get the lock to open. So I'm going to move the pick in now until I can feel the top of the first pin, just to check that those lines are lining up, and then I'm going to push the first pin down and we get a click. Now you can see that the gradation on here is out ever so slightly, so we need to match that all the way down to be on the top of all the other pins. So we've had a small click out of pin 1, let's go to pin 2. As I say, it's a very gentle turning force on there, and I'm also being very gentle here with the actual pick itself, just not to overset anything. So let's go to 2, I can feel the pin binding, but there's no feedback. Okay, there we go. Nice click out of pin 2. Let's go to pin 3. That's binding. A partial click there. Okay, let's go to pin 4. Pin 4 feels very high. That probably means that it's, when they sit high up in there, it probably means it's going to be almost a 0 lift pin. Let's have a listen. There we go. I hardly rotated the pick there. Let's just check these pins. So we've got pin 1 set, pin 2 set, pin 3 feels set, pin 4 feels set. So let's go to pin 5. There it is. Let's turn pin 5. That's binding. It feels really tight. Just making sure I'm on top of the pin. There you go. I've relaxed the tension a little bit then. Because the pin was binding so firmly, I've just relaxed my hand. I've allowed the pin to set, and in doing so, if we take the pick out, in doing so, the core has now rotated, or kicked, as some people like to say, and that means that we're now hung up on the sliders on the side of the cylinder. So I'm going to get the slider tool out. I'm going to pop it in there. You can tell when you're ready to be picking the sliders, because when you push this tool in, you feel resistance from the sliders. So there's pin, there's slider, there's 4 sliders in here, I believe. Let's just set them. Okay, and then we've got the lock open. So have we got the cam? Yes, we have. So the cam's turning in the background there, and we've got the full turn on the door there, all the way on the lock there, all the way around, and we've got the door open. And let's lock it up again. There we go. And if I now pop the key back in, you can see the lock still works just fine. So when using this, always make sure that it's pushed in, otherwise you'll pick the lock but you won't pick up the cam. Always check the position of the first pin and take a note of where it is on the gradations, because if I'd been picking directly on top of those red lines, for example, I would have been picking the warding and not the actual top of the pins. So you can just make a mental note yourself by sliding the pick in and understand where that is. And then it was a case of just enough tension to bind the pins up, or just enough turning force to bind the pins. And if you find a really heavy binder, then you can just relax that a little bit just to set the pin. Otherwise, you run the risk of oversetting the pin and getting trapped effectively. So another way of picking this is by hand, and you can potentially use a cut down key to pick up the cam and then run your pick down the pin side of the lock. I'm going to use the blade from the GJ kit, and I know that if I push that in and hold it with a gentle tension, that will allow me to pick up the cam. And then I'm going to use a Huck dimple pick number 4, which fits this lock perfectly. I'm going to run it up this top right hand side of the warding there, and I'm going to use my thumb to keep it in there and then help me navigate my way through this lock. So let's have a listen. There's pin 1. There's pin 2. pin 3. So 1, 2, 3. Pin 4. Relax the tension. There we go. So we've now got a really big kick on that lock. And we are now potentially hooked up on those sliders. And there we go. The lock is open. And we can see that we've still got the cam. And there's your full 360 turn on that